Okay, so now we're at the ARF 9th General Assembly. So, Mom, can you turn to page 181? This is only 4 pages, 5 pages. So she is going to read from page 181. There you go.
Right there.
Okay, so we need to get the microphone closer to you.
ARF 9th General Assembly. Coincidentally, on the day that the United States Senate Subcommittee on Foreign Relations began discussing Senate Joint Resolution 106 for the maintenance of peace in Armenia, on September 27, 1919, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation's 9th General Congress was convened in Yerevan, the capital of newly independent Republic of Armenia. It concluded at the end of October 1919. Shahan Natalie participated in ARF's Congress as the United States District Delegate. On the Congress agenda was placed the issue of retribution against those Turks principally responsible for the Great Atrocity. Here, Shahan Natalie experienced the first serious embitterment of his political life when some of the delegates deemed this policy wrong. The following document was written by my Shahan Natalie in 1919 during his return to the United States from Armenia. Shahan's notes on the 9th ARF General Assembly. The General Assembly lasted nearly 7 weeks. The gravity of an assembly, unfortunately, within the Federation is measured by its duration. It has been taught to the ranks to swell with as much pride as a meeting drags on. Among them, there is an implicit satisfaction for all their questions and desires when it is said that a meeting has lasted 40 days. Neither is the administration exempt from that mindset. And because of that, particularly the concept of the General Assembly will not have been fulfilled if it does not drag on for 40 days. The evidence of 40 days is sufficient to certify that it is not the gravity and seriousness of issues, but the inexorable right of each and every delegate to show off his oratorial talent, not to miss the sought-after opportunity, proving that not even 40 days are sufficient to cover the agenda. And indeed, never has a General Assembly been adjourned with its agenda completely covered. A committee has always been selected with General Assembly plenipotentiaries assigned to resolve the remaining issues, almost always the most important ones, as well as those other assignments to be dealt with. The 9th General Assembly did not form an exception from that rank. To take detailed notes would signify to record the spoken orations verbatim. For me, however, as a delegate who would go to Yerevan, there was one leading voice, the voice of my father's blood, mingled with the voice of blood from millions of Armenian martyrs. This voice is also, I am certain, the leader of more than a decade of delegates who would set out by the same ship from Bolis and disembark in Batumi. The evidence is that Bolis' representative body had assembled with such precision the list of more than 200 names of those Turk monsters who had luxuriated up to their throats in the bloodbath of the Armenians. We already had their names, official statuses, deeds accomplished, a complete life story linked to the bloodshed of 1 million Armenians. We kept that list with us to put it on the desk of the Federation's Supreme Court of Justice, a pro forma step depicting party discipline, because not one of us could imagine even a single word which did not translate into the most sanctified call of our soul. With that list, we also had that extraordinary official declaration of Turkish participation in the War of 1915, broadcast in Troshag, proclaiming all members of the Turkish cabinet personally responsible for all the misdeeds if on the occasion of war there were to have occurred horrors upon the heads of Armenians in Turkey. The Federation upper body believed in some way to propel the Turkish leadership of the day toward repentance. This declaration was already an official verdict previously given, which was entering into effect, given that its foundation had been contrived to unimaginable extents. Consequently, it had become an undertaking, a promise given to the Armenian people. I think we should stop here.
Well, no, I think
You want me to? I'm almost
Yeah,
done?
you're almost done. Well, let's just get to the part.
You're such a wonderful audience.
I know.
You are amazing.
My mother used to read us bedtime stories. It reminds me of that. I'm not going to fall asleep, though.
This is your bedtime story. It remained for the General Assembly only one more time to reiterate that the Federation was the master of its word. For me, that was the pivotal axis of the issues, and without this issue, the Assembly could not be named revolutionary. It was a crime to allow from afar describing a revolutionary in any other way. With that understanding and with the immeasurable respect among ourselves regarding the General Assembly, as well as clear confidence that I was setting foot inside the hall of Armenia's parliament, which for more than 40 days became our meeting site. It was the super parliament which had come to replace the parliamentary council. Parenthetically, I want you to think about the 40 days. Ed, think about where you've read about 40 days. It's biblical. Just remember that. I must say that among myself and those like me, from the very first day, many things faltered from the viewpoint of decorum. It was not with a pleasant impression that we saw that this assembly, through whose door we were entering with religious scruples, from Tiflis and Yerevan, in the name of student associations, schoolboys had come, and with such weak-minded arrogance, they were sitting side by side with those big ones, which we had aggrandized from afar, surrounding them, and they were speaking with them on a first-name basis and in the familiar tense. Avedik, Simon, and others, when we could not forgive the dishonorable intimacy of stressing the word comrade, Nged. That image was the first tremor which was going to open a rift, but I wanted not to look at that rift. However, not wanting was insufficient. Above the stage, completely overtaking facade, on a fiery red fabric, was the motto, "Proletariats of all countries, unite." And beneath it, the opening of our trusted assembly, which had a force within it. Before the start of which it was revealed that my effort to defy was for nothing, and also revealing that the tremor raised the same emotions among all the Turco-Armenian delegates going from the diaspora as well. There was only one, Bedrosian, who thought that he was demonstrating the debut of his intelligence by proving that the mutiny of the others were anti-revolutionary. As unexpected as this revelation was for us, equally incomprehensible was our revolt shown toward him for those who have only noticed passivity in the spirit of Turco-Armenians, and to give the student representatives occasion to demonstrate their social talent and products from a diocesan school as food for lapdogs and their supereminence above university outsiders. The insincere caresses of the tempted, not expecting the unexpected as an immediate convenient retort, "It's only because of the opening," and those words were ineffective in forcing the rebellious spirit to retreat. That spirit had read more into those letters than what the actual words contained. And the students, when they were discovering that the formulas they had be forced to memorize were ineffective now, were not reluctant to force the rebels to retreat with their insulting comments. This moment and event I will never be able to forget, because that was the first honest confession that the Federation is the name of two things, and of these, the one does not resemble the other. The retreat would at last become the share of the students and the teachers, because the rebels were refusing to yield even one letter from their threat. And the seconds were elapsing, and the moment of the Congress's public opening was approaching. And we remained standing until that last nail was pried loose and the crimson banner was taken down, criticizing the Orthodox socialites' scathing visual and oral comments hurled in our direction.
We're almost done. This is the important part.
This is the important part.
Well,
all of it is important.
Of course.
The second issue on the days of adjournment was the agenda item postponed until the last minute. That issue, which for us was the principal one, the list of the perpetrators and the Assembly's message about them as an echo of our martyrs' legacy. As the days were elapsing and the need to bring the interminable to termination were showing the necessity to determine a date of adjournment, and moreover, impatience was beginning to take voice in me. The days were presenting numerous opportunities to eradicate indulgences and to exhaust patience. Many times, a written request had been submitted for the presidency to place that issue on the next agenda. Many times, indications of exhausted patience had been expressed vocally. With an Eastern roguish smile, a veiled promise had always been the response. We were Easterners as well, and it was not difficult to quickly see that Durcheg Alte was the intent of those smiles, until the days of adjournment, a threat similar to the threat on opening day, necessitated that the presidency place the issue on the table. It was time for the issue to be discussed. The General Assembly, in order at least not to curb the eagerness of the creators, more specifically of those from whom going on stage and speaking at the podium would play the role of a forbidding force, had decided not only the time allocation for each speaker, but also the condition that each speaker was obliged to go on stage and express his opinion from the stage. The first speakers about the issue were Simon Vratsyan, Ishkhan Arghutian, members of the presidency, and Rupen Derminasyan. After their speeches, it was clear that I would be the fourth speaker. I know with certainty that many others were registered, but the issue was closed with my remarks because an erupting revolution was becoming evident. Here is what those three spoke in summary and conclusion. It is true that the Turk annihilated the Turco-Armenians with a savagery not written in history. During the course of war, massacres can always occur, even if this one may not have had its equal. We were in battle against the Turk, and we must deem this our dues to that struggle, which has now given us our homeland and independence. Today, we are henceforth a republic, and it is not acceptable governmentally to adopt that method which we were employing yesterday. Therefore, we must remove that issue from this Assembly's agenda. Boldly and literally, they repeated the same things, one after the other, of which every single word exploded a bomb in my being. I am certain also in others, but the silence that pervaded the hall was of a different color. Biting my tongue, I listened to their words, which, as governmental as they may have been, were finding the doors to my brain closed tight. And their face henceforth was changing the traits familiar to me and was making them irrecognizable. Once again, I was realizing exactly what was the intent of their promises and delays. When I was going up on stage to make my remarks, I know I was trembling, and my teeth had pulverized all the fetters of my tongue. Here is what I said, word for word.
You heard the three speakers, and you understood. I understood even more. I regret that they spoke. Would they have not spoken? They should not have spoken, because they are Caucasian Armenians, and this issue is an exceptionally Turco-Armenian issue, the issue only of those who have at least one martyr of their loved ones amongst the million. Listen well then, that it is not in 1915 that I have given up martyrs. In 1895, I also gave up a martyr, my father, and I grew up orphaned. And it is the vengeance of my father's blood that has made me a revolutionary. I declare, therefore, that even if its name be Divine Federation, yet severs its bond from those martyrs, my bond with this federation is also severed. I demand that the right to speak about this issue be on condition that the speakers having given up martyrs and that no single Caucasian Armenian be allowed to speak. For 40 days we have listened to you too much. Now you listen to us for 1 day also. And to my Turco-Armenian comrades, I also declare that if they don't share my opinion, my demand from the Federation, let them know this very minute that this issue for me, as a Turco-Armenian, I will not subject to their will. I consider this issue one between my father's assassin and an issue to be resolved, nor do I recognize any assembly or decision whatsoever which attempts to interfere in the name of whatever it may be. Let me just read this part and you can read the last part. I conclude demanding all those speakers who have no martyrs to resign from their right to speak.
The silence was more heavy and oppressive when I was quietly leaving the stage. That silence lasted for a while. No one wanted to say a word. It was only decided to consider the entire list presented to the Bolis representative body as sentenced to death, to duplicate that list and transmit it to the central committees, to call to responsibility any central committee if one or the other name from that list is in its boundaries and does not implement the approved decision. At the top of the list was the name of Talat.
Okay, so that is, thank you.